The rain had been falling since dawn. It streaked down the courthouse windows in crooked lines, blurring the city outside into smudges of gray and silver. Inside, the hum of quiet voices echoed through the marble halls. Reporters gathered near courtroom 4B, adjusting their cameras, whispering the same two words that carried weight like thunder. Darren Cole. By now, his name was a story in itself, a tale of wasted chances and small-time crimes that had turned into a cycle no one could break. Theft, assault, parole violations, his record read like a map of bad decisions. But what made today different wasn't the crime. It was the man behind the bench. Judge Eric Mogens. A man whose name made even seasoned attorneys sit straighter. He was known for his precision, his discipline, and his belief that the law was not a suggestion but a boundary carved in stone. Over 3 decades on the bench, Mogens had built a reputation, firm, unflinching, incorruptible. But lately, whispers had started, rumors that his rulings had grown colder, harsher. Some said he'd lost faith in people. Others said he never had any to begin with. When the bailiff opened the doors, the courtroom filled fast. Every seat was taken. Every camera light blinked on. Then the sound of clinking chains broke the silence. Darren Cole was led in by 2 deputies, his orange jumpsuit wrinkled, his wrists cuffed tightly. He looked older than his 27 years, dark circles beneath his eyes, scars along his knuckles, a hollow confidence in his smirk. But there was something else there too, something defiant, almost mocking. When he caught sight of Judge Mogens, that smirk grew wider. The judge didn't react. He adjusted his glasses, flipped open the thick file before him, and spoke in a tone that cut through the murmurs like steel. "Mr. Cole," he began, "this is not your first time in this courtroom. Nor your second. In fact, this file tells me it's your 7th. A few quiet gasps floated from the benches. Darren shrugged. "Guess you should give me a loyalty card then." A few people laughed nervously, but Mogens didn't. His expression didn't shift, not even slightly. "You think this is a joke," Mogens said, voice low and measured. "But every time you've stood here, this court has extended leniency. Probation. Rehabilitation. Community service. You've been given every opportunity to change your life." "I didn't ask for sympathy, Your Honor," Darren muttered, eyes hard. "No," Mogens replied, leaning forward slightly, "but you took it, every single time." The room went still. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. For a moment, the judge's tone softened. "Mr. Cole," he said, "you're young. You have the potential to do something with your life. But each time, you choose the same path. You blame the system, society, everyone but yourself. Tell me, why should this court believe you've changed now?" Darren looked up, his smirk fading. "Because I didn't have a choice back then." The words came out sharper than he intended, raw with something that sounded dangerously close to truth. "I grew up in this system. Foster homes. Juvenile centers. You think any of that teaches you how to live right?" Mogens studied him in silence. His fingers tapped lightly against the bench. "And what did you learn?" Darren looked away. "That nobody cares until it's too late." For a brief, flickering moment, something shifted behind Mogens' eyes, recognition, maybe even sympathy, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He straightened. "You're right about one thing," he said coldly. "It is too late." Darren blinked, confused. "What?" "The time for excuses has passed," Mogens continued. "The court cannot continue to waste its mercy on a man who refuses to value it. Mercy means nothing when it teaches nothing." The word struck like thunder. Darren opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His mother, seated in the back row, whispered a prayer under her breath. The prosecutor's pen stopped moving. Judge Mogens picked up his pen and began to write. Every stroke echoed in the silence. The deputies stood at attention, waiting for the inevitable. 20 years, he said finally. No parole. The sound that followed wasn't a cry or a shout, it was quieter than that. A breath sucked out of the room, a collective disbelief. Darren stared at him, his eyes wide with shock. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious, Mogens replied. Case closed. The gavel came down with a crack that reverberated through the hall like a final heartbeat. If you're still watching this, then you already know this isn't just about a criminal or a courtroom. It's about what happens when justice forgets mercy, and when a man who's built his life on judgment suddenly has to face his own. Because what Judge Mogens doesn't know yet is that this case, this one man he sentenced, isn't random. It's a shadow from his past, a decision he made decades ago coming back to stand before him in handcuffs. And before this story ends, that gavel he's so proud of, it won't just decide another man's fate. It'll decide his own. As the bailiffs led Darren away, the young man turned once, just once, to look at the judge. There was no anger in his eyes anymore. Only something colder. Something that looked like understanding. And for the first time in years, Judge Mogens felt it, not doubt, not guilt, but a quiet, unfamiliar discomfort. When the courtroom emptied, he stayed seated. The rain outside had grown heavier, the thunder distant but steady. He looked down at the file again, the papers already smudged with ink. His clerk entered quietly. Sir, she said, the press is waiting for a statement. Mogens didn't look up. There's nothing to say, he murmured. Justice has been served. But the words sounded hollow, even to him. As the door closed behind her, he noticed something at the bottom of the case file, a note clipped to Darren's record. It was old, worn at the edges. He frowned, pulling it free. The note wasn't from the defense, nor the prosecution. It was a handwritten letter, its ink faded but still legible. He unfolded it carefully, scanning the first line, and froze. To the man who will one day judge my son. The handwriting was rough, uneven, and below the greeting was a signature that made his chest tighten. Michael Cole. The name hit him like a jolt. He remembered it, vaguely, buried under years of trials and rulings. A case from long ago. A man who had stood before him, begging for leniency, swearing he was innocent of the charges. Mogens had sentenced him without hesitation. Michael Cole had died in prison. And now, his son had just stood before the same judge, and suffered the same fate. Mogens stared at the letter, his hand trembling. The words on the page seemed to blur under the weight of what they meant. He looked up at the empty courtroom, the same place where he'd built his reputation, his legacy, his belief in justice, and for the first time, it felt like a cell. Outside, lightning flashed. And as the thunder rolled again, one truth settled in the air, heavy, inescapable, and cruelly poetic. This story wasn't over. Not for Darren Cole. And certainly not for Judge Eric Mogens. The courthouse was empty again. 2 weeks had passed since the sentencing of Darren Cole, but for Judge Eric Mogens, sleep had not returned. Each night he found himself back in that moment, the gavel crashing down, the look in Darren's eyes, the echo of a father's ghost. He told himself it was just another case. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. The storm outside roared louder tonight. Thunder rolled across the city like a slow confession. The lamps on Mogens' desk flickered as he reviewed new files, though his mind wasn't in the room. A knock came on the door. Sharp, hesitant. "Come in," he said, his voice weary. His clerk entered, holding a thin brown envelope sealed with the state emblem. "This just came in from the public defender's office, Your Honor. They said it's personal." Mogens frowned. "Personal?" The clerk nodded. "Addressed directly to you." When the door closed again, Mogens turned the envelope over in his hands. It was old, the edges yellowed, the paper brittle with time. A strange chill ran through him as he tore it open and unfolded the single sheet inside. The handwriting was shaky but clear. At the top was a name that stopped his breath cold. Michael Cole. The father. He leaned forward, reading slowly, the sound of the rain swallowed by the silence in the room. To the man who may one day judge my son. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it out. I know my name won't mean much, but my boy, he's better than I ever was. I failed him, Your Honor. The system failed me, too. I hope you'll give him what no one ever gave me, a chance. Mogens lowered the letter, his hand trembling slightly. His throat tightened, his pulse quickened. The words felt alive, as if the dead man had somehow reached across time to hand him his guilt. He rose from his chair, pacing the room. His reflection in the window stared back at him, an old man in a black robe, haunted by the ghosts of men he'd condemned. When Harris left, Mogens looked back at the letter. It felt heavier now, almost sacred. A dying man's plea for mercy, ignored by the one man who could have granted it. He pulled a pen from his drawer and stared at the latest sentencing order. The ink had barely dried beside Darren's name, 20 years, no parole. He hesitated. Then slowly, he took a fresh sheet and began to write a motion, something he hadn't done in decades. Petition for sentence review, judge's discretion. His heart pounded as he signed his name beneath it. It was a breach of tradition. A judge overturning his own sentence? Unheard of. But this wasn't about procedure anymore. It was about penance. At dawn, the storm had passed. The city outside was gray and still. Mogens drove to the detention center himself, the letter in his coat pocket, the motion in his briefcase. He signed in, walked past the security gates, and followed the guard to a small visitation room. Darren Cole sat inside, his orange jumpsuit wrinkled, his expression guarded. When he saw Mogens, his eyes widened. You? Mogens took a seat across from him, setting the letter on the table. Your father wrote this, he said quietly. Jens looked down. But before he died, he wrote this. It was never delivered. I only just received it. Darren's eyes scanned the faded words. His lips pressed tight, and for the first time, Mogens saw something break behind them, not anger, but pain. He thought I still had a chance, Darren whispered. Mogens nodded. He was right. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Darren looked up. Why are you here, Judge? To feel better about what you did? Mogens swallowed. The question pierced straight through. No, he said. I came because I was wrong. About your father. About you. I thought justice meant being unshakable, but I forgot it also meant being human. Darren leaned back, eyes studying the man who'd just sentenced him. You think that changes anything? I don't know. In the end, Judge Mogens learned that justice without mercy isn't justice at all, it's just power dressed in a robe. And sometimes, the hardest verdict you'll ever deliver, is the one against yourself. If this story moved you, if it made you think twice about what true justice really means, then drop a comment below. Tell me what you would have done if you were in Judge Mogens's seat. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories. And subscribe for more true, emotional, and mind-twisting stories just like this one. Because every story has a lesson, and the next one might just change the way you see justice forever.